My sister stole my fiancé 2 months before our wedding. Now they're married, expecting a baby, and my family wants me to be the maid of honor. I, Teeny 8F, was engaged to Ryan, 30M, for about a year. We'd been together for 3 years total, and things seemed great. Our wedding was planned for this summer. I met Ryan at a friend's barbecue 5 years ago. I remember it clearly because it was the day I got a promotion at work, and I almost didn't go to the party. But my friend insisted, saying I needed to celebrate. Ryan was there with a group of his coworkers. He stood out immediately, tall with a crooked smile and an infectious laugh. We bonded over our shared love of obscure 80s movies and terrible puns. By the end of the night, we'd exchanged numbers. Our relationship moved quickly after that. Within 6 months, we were practically living together. Ryan was everything I'd ever wanted in a partner. He was kind, ambitious, and always knew how to make me laugh. My family adored him, especially my younger sister Betty, 25F. Betty and I have always been close, despite a bit of sibling rivalry growing up. She's the fun one, spontaneous and outgoing, while I'm more reserved and practical. But we balanced each other out well. When our parents divorced when I was 16 and Betty was 13, we leaned on each other heavily. I took on a bit of a maternal role, helping Betty with homework and giving her advice about boys. Even as adults, we talked almost daily. When I introduced Ryan to my family, Betty hit it off with him immediately. They discovered a shared passion for rock climbing and started going on weekend trips together. I was thrilled that my sister and my boyfriend got along so well. Betty had a long-term boyfriend, Jake, at the time, so I never suspected anything inappropriate. Ryan proposed on our third anniversary. It was perfect, a surprise picnic at the spot where we had our first date. I was over the moon. We set the date for the following summer and dove into wedding planning. Betty volunteered to be my maid of honor and threw herself into helping with all the details. She even organized my bachelorette party, a weekend spa getaway with my closest friends. Everything was going smoothly until about 2 months before the wedding. I came home early from work one day, excited because I'd just landed a big client. I was planning to surprise Ryan with a nice dinner. Instead, I found him in our apartment packing up his things. At first, I thought there had been some kind of emergency with his family, but then he sat me down and told me he was leaving me. For Betty, they'd fallen in love during their climbing trips and had been having an affair for months. I was blindsided and devastated. I remember just sitting there in shock as Ryan explained. He said he never meant for it to happen, that he still cared about me, but that his feelings for Betty were on another level. He apologized for the hurt he was causing, but said he couldn't go through with the wedding knowing he was in love with someone else. As soon as Ryan left, I called Betty to confront her. Her response floored me. Not only did she admit to the affair, but she showed zero remorse. She said they were in love and planning to move in together. When I brought up Jake, her boyfriend of 5 years, she dismissively said they'd broken up weeks ago. I told her I never wanted to speak to her again. The next few weeks were a blur of canceling wedding plans and trying to explain the situation to confused friends and family. My parents were initially sympathetic. My mom stayed with me for a few days, helping me pack up Ryan's remaining things and listening to me cry. But their support was short-lived. Within a few weeks, they started pressuring me to forgive Betty and Ryan. They said I was tearing the family apart and needed to get over it for everyone's sake. My dad even had the audacity to say, "Well, at least we know Ryan will still be part of the family." I was furious. I told them I was cutting contact with all of them. For a while, things were quiet. I threw myself into work, started therapy, and tried to piece my life back together. I was just starting to feel like myself again when the wedding invitation arrived in the mail. Betty and Ryan are getting married, and my parents are fully supporting it. They even called to tell me I need to attend as maid of honor to show there are no hard feelings. I lost it. I told them they were all dead to me and that I'd rather eat glass than watch my sister marry my ex-fiancé. Now my extended family is blowing up my phone. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all saying I'm being petty and need to let it go. Apparently Betty is pregnant, which is why they're rushing the wedding. Everyone is acting like I'm the bad guy for not wanting to celebrate my sister marrying the man who was supposed to be my husband. I'm holding firm on not attending or having any contact with them, but the pressure is intense and relentless. My cousin Sarah, who I've always been close with, called in tears begging me to reconsider. She said Betty cries every day about how she's lost her sister and that the family won't be complete without me there. Part of me wants to scream at them all. How can they expect me to stand up and support this marriage? To watch Betty walk down the aisle in what was supposed to be my wedding? To pretend like my heart isn't shattered into a million pieces? But another part of me is starting to question if I'm overreacting. Am I letting my hurt and anger cloud my judgment? Should I be the bigger person and support my sister? Or am I justified in cutting them all out of my life? So, Reddit, aita for refusing to attend my sister's wedding to my ex? Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thank you all for the supportive comments. To answer some common questions, yes, Betty and Ryan knew the wedding date when they started their affair. They planned to tell me after I'd spent thousands on non-refundable deposits. My parents are paying for Betty's entire wedding as a gift. They refused to help with mine because Ryan and I were stable enough to pay ourselves. I've already changed my number and blocked them on social media. I'm looking into moving cities for a fresh start. For those asking about Jake, Betty's ex, he found out about the affair around the same time I did and immediately broke up with her. He reached out to apologize even though it wasn't his fault. He's a good guy and we've stayed in touch. I'm not going to name and shame them publicly. As tempting as it is, I don't want to stoop to their level. Thanks again for all the kind words and advice. I'll post an update if anything significant happens. Update 1. It's been about a month since my original post. A lot has happened, so I'll try to summarize the key points. First, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. It really helped me stay strong in my decision to cut contact. I ended up changing my number and moving to a new apartment across town. I also started looking for jobs in other cities. Unfortunately, my family didn't respect my wishes for no contact. My parents showed up at my workplace last week, causing a scene in the lobby. They were crying and begging me to reconsider attending the wedding. My dad even tried to guilt me by saying he might not have many years left. He's perfectly healthy at 60 and doesn't want to die with us estranged. I had security escort them out and filed a report in case they try it again. The next day, I got an email from Betty. She wrote a long, rambling message about how sorry she was and how she never meant to hurt me. She said the pregnancy was unplanned and she's terrified. She begged me to be there for her during this time and said she needs her big sister. In the email, Betty went into detail about how the affair started. Apparently, it began on a climbing trip about 8 months ago. They got stuck on a difficult route as night was falling and had to bivouac on the mountain. She said they stayed up all night talking and something just clicked. After that, they started meeting up in secret. Reading her explanation just made me angrier. I remembered that trip. Betty had called me the next day, raving about how amazing the climb was. I had been so happy that she and Ryan were becoming close friends. Little did I know they were falling in love behind my back. Betty's email went on to say that she and Ryan had planned to tell me about their relationship after the wedding. They thought it would be kinder to wait until after I'd had my special day. As if finding out my husband and sister were having an affair would have been any less devastating after we were married. I didn't respond to the email. I couldn't trust myself not to say something I'd regret. Ryan also tried to contact me through a mutual friend. He wanted to meet up to explain his side of things. I refused and told the friend I'd cut contact with them too if they kept passing messages. The worst part is that my extended family has taken sides. Most of them are supporting Betty and Ryan, saying that true love should be celebrated regardless of how it started. My favorite aunt even told me I was being selfish for not thinking of the baby. The family drama has dredged up a lot of old issues. My aunt's comment reminded me of how the family always seemed to prioritize Betty's feelings over mine. When we were kids, Betty would often take or break my things. Instead of punishing her, my parents would tell me to be understanding because I was the older sister. It feels like history repeating itself. Once again, I'm expected to put aside my own hurt for Betty's sake. Only my cousin Sarah is firmly on my side. She offered to let me stay with her if I decide to move cities. Sarah and I have always been close. We're the same age and went to college together. She's been my rock through all of this. listening to me vent and assuring me that I'm not crazy for feeling betrayed. I'm still holding firm on my decision, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't wearing on me. The constant barrage of messages and flying monkeys is exhausting. I've started seeing a therapist to help process everything, which has been helpful. On a positive note, I've thrown myself into work and hobbies. I joined a local hiking group and have made some new friends. It's nice to be around people who don't know about all the drama. Last weekend, we did an overnight trip to a nearby state park. Sitting around the campfire with my new friends, laughing and sharing stories, I felt truly happy for the first time in months. Work has been a welcome distraction too. I've taken on some new projects and am in line for a promotion. My boss has been incredibly understanding about the whole situation, especially after my parents' scene in the lobby. He's even offered to give me a glowing recommendation if I decide to look for jobs in other cities. That's all for now. I'll update again if there are any major developments. Thanks again for all the support. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my last update, and about a week since Betty and Ryan's wedding. A lot has happened, so I'll try to cover the main points. Despite my best efforts to avoid all information about the wedding, details kept trickling in through well-meaning coworkers and acquaintances. Apparently, it was a lavish affair at an upscale vineyard. My parents spared no expense, even hiring a live band that Betty and I had always dreamed of having at our weddings when we were kids. The day before the wedding, I received a package at my office. Inside was a bridesmaid dress with a note from my mother begging me to reconsider and show up. The dress was eerily similar to the one I had picked out for my own bridesmaids. I couldn't help but wonder if Betty had deliberately chosen a style she knew I liked. I ended up donating the dress to a local charity that provides prom dresses to underprivileged teens. On the day of the wedding, I turned off my phone and spent the day at a spa with my friend Kate. We got massages, lounged by the pool, and deliberately avoided any talk of weddings or family drama. It was exactly what I needed. When I turned my phone back on that night, I had over 50 missed calls and countless messages. Most were from family members, alternating between guilt-tripping and anger that I hadn't shown up. My grandmother left a particularly hurtful voicemail saying I had ruined Betty's special day and that she was ashamed of me. The most surprising message was from Ryan's brother, Tom. We had been close when Ryan and I were together. He was like the brother I never had. He called to tell me he had refused to attend the wedding too, saying he couldn't support what Ryan and Betty had done. It was validating to know at least one person from their side understood my position. Tom filled me in on some details I hadn't known. Apparently, Ryan had confessed the affair to him months ago, before I even knew. Tom had urged him to come clean to me immediately, but Ryan kept putting it off. Learning this made me feel even more betrayed. Not only had Ryan cheated, but he had actively deceived me for months. A few days after the wedding, my parents showed up at my apartment unannounced. I refused to let them in, so they stood in the hallway crying and pleading. They said Betty had been inconsolable that I wasn't there and it had ruined her special day. I told them that Betty and Ryan had ruined what was supposed to be my special day months ago, and that they needed to leave before I called the police. As they were leaving, my mom tried one last guilt trip. She said, "I just hope you can live with yourself knowing you've broken your sister's heart." It took every ounce of self-control not to scream at her about how Betty had broken my heart. The next day, I received an email from Betty. It was full of anger and blame, saying I was selfish for not being there for her during the most important day of her life. She said my absence had cast a shadow over the whole event and that she would never forgive me for it. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony of her talking about forgiveness. I'm still planning to move cities. I have a job interview next week in a town about 3 hours away. My cousin Sarah has offered to help me move and get settled. I'm looking forward to a fresh start away from all this drama. That's all for now. I'll post another update if anything significant happens. Update 3. It's been about 6 months since my last update. I've settled into my new city and job, and life has finally started to feel normal again. The move was the best decision I could have made. Being physically removed from the situation has given me much-needed peace. My new colleagues don't know about my past, which is refreshing. I can just be myself without the weight of everyone's expectations and judgments. Unfortunately, the distance hasn't completely stopped my family's attempts at contact. My parents somehow got my new address and sent a package for my birthday. Inside was a framed photo of Betty's ultrasound with a note saying, "Don't punish your niece for adult mistakes." I returned it unopened. Betty gave birth last month. I found out through a group text from a distant cousin who apparently didn't realize I wasn't speaking to the family. The baby is healthy, which I'm genuinely glad about despite everything. They named her Olivia, which was the name I had picked out for my future daughter. Ryan knew this. It feels like another deliberate jab at me. Ryan reached out again, this time through LinkedIn. He sent a long message about how becoming a father has made him realize the gravity of his actions. He apologized and said he hopes we can eventually be cordial for the sake of his daughter. I didn't respond, but I did block him. On a more positive note, I've started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but it's nice to feel like I'm moving forward. I met a guy named Alex at a local coffee shop. We've been on a few dates and it's been fun. He knows the basics of my family situation and has been really understanding about my trust issues. I've also made some great friends through a local book club. We meet every other week to discuss the book and usually end up talking for hours about life in general. It's nice to have a support system that isn't tied to my past. I still have moments of anger and hurt, especially around holidays or when I see happy families out together. But those moments are becoming less frequent. I'm focusing on building my new life and trying not to dwell on the past. That's all for now. Thank you all again for your support throughout this journey. It's meant more than you know.